Hi, welcome to Tech Talks, the People and Planet podcast. On today's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Laws, the COO of Rhino Health. Hi, Chris. How's it going?
Hello, I'm well. And you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you for joining us. Really interested to learn more about Rhino. I'm not going to try and give a description of what you guys are, because I know that you guys are going to do it in a second, but at a very high level, this is about data within healthcare. Tell us more. What's the problem that you solve with the mission, and what inspired that as well?
Sure. So our mission is to activate the world's health data, and that was inspired by experiences that several of us have had in past lives where doing this kind of cross-institution collaboration is challenging, either for research purposes or for commercial partnerships between hospitals and pharma companies. They're really hard. Everybody wants to respect patient privacy and make sure that data are not, flying all over the universe. But that's balanced against the need that we have for all sorts of amazing applications, both of artificial intelligence that require a lot of data, or even more simply, things like public health surveillance, where it would be great to be able to tap into a real-time flow of data. This is all really hard because of privacy laws, and then frankly, a lot of technological challenges. And Rhino Health is here to solve kind of all of those. So we provide an end-to-end platform that helps both on the data factory, data generation, and then the data pipeline side, and then enabling actually a lot of those AI use cases.
Love it. Okay. And I'm sure that a lot of my audience that are very artificial intelligence minded will absolutely buy into this as well. Unwrap it a little bit more for us then. So is it just one product, which is a platform, or do you have multiple solutions for different verticals? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have our core product is the Rhino Federated Computing platform, which is a very brilliant, extensible infrastructure layer or architecture layer that really just makes it so that you can run commands or run compute on somebody else's data. And so that code that you run on somebody else's data can vary from something very simple like give me a count of patients that have these characteristics to something slightly more complicated, like transform those data from measuring height in inches to measuring height in centimeters, to then something more complicated still, like I want to train an AI model on those data, to then even more complicated, which is using custom code. So I am deploying a third-party software like RStudio on somebody else's data in a secure environment. So that's our foundational architecture layer. And then on top of that, we've built a few different applications that are useful for very specific purposes. So we have a data harmonization application, we have a trusted research environment application, we have a federated data set application, which makes it easy to, again, generate harmonized data, which is a big stumbling block in a lot of these data collaborations, to then surface those data in a library that's very easily browsed, and then to actually start using those data for whatever purposes you may have in mind.
Got it. Okay, nice. And so do you guys just operate in healthcare at the moment?
We are primarily focused on healthcare, although that's actually one of the new things for us is starting to explore beyond healthcare, which is actually driven in part by two things. So the first of which is our technology itself is I'll say over-engineered, or it's designed in such a way that it's a very low lift to start applying this in other areas, which is very good for us. But then also just as important is as a relatively small team, we try to maintain focus, but we have the benefit of partnerships with a couple of giants. So we have strategic partnerships with NVIDIA and with Google, who are both actually introducing us to clientele outside of our normal healthcare and life sciences sectors. And so we're starting to have conversations with the public sector, with financial services, which is a really exciting extension. It's really wherever the data are too sensitive to centralize, that's a fantastic application for our software.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of where I was going with that. It just seemed like it could be bolted onto many different areas.
Yeah, so you imagine something like
insight and things like that.
Yeah, you imagine something like fraud detection in financial services. Yeah. It's a consortia problem. We help exactly hit the nail on the head, but there are extensions to agriculture and manufacturing, supply chain management, and national security. So lots of really cool places that we hope to go eventually.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Tell us a little bit more about your background then. I mean, what's your story and how did you arrive at Rhino?
Yeah, so I am my career started at McKinsey, so working with a variety of clients across, technology and financial services and media. Over time, I started to hold leadership positions that were kind of at the intersection of digital operations, commercial operations, and then got the health tech bug, which ultimately led me into the startup space. And then my last role was a position where we partnered with payers in the United States who we had an AI product that we wanted to retrain on the payer data. They were always very hesitant to do so, understandably so. That's, they want to respect their members. And so this was always a challenge where we ran into. And then I had the chance to connect with the team at Rhino and realized, oh, you're addressing like exactly a major
Yeah.
pain point for me in this contracting. Really cool technology, great team of people, and decided the Rhino was the right next move for me. So I've been here for about two plus years at this point.
Yeah, I love it. And are you technical at all then, or do you just know your way around the data?
Enough to fudge conversations like this, but no, we have a great team of both medical experts and then technology experts who support everything that we do, of course.
Yeah, of course, of course. So I always ask this question on the show because we do get a lot of a listener base is kind of fellow leadership that are experiencing this. So it's rarely plain sailing with startups.
Mhm.
Share some of the challenges that you guys have to navigate and how you best go about that.
I think there's the generic startup challenge of everybody always has to wear multiple hats, and so there's an element of what do I
Yeah.
need to prioritize today? I think that's a universal experience that leadership at kind of every startup organization runs into. I think some things that have been more specific to our space. We have the challenge, as I mentioned, our software is pretty extensible and it can be used across a lot of different applications,
Mm.
certainly within healthcare and life sciences and then beyond. One of the things we've struggled with is, well, how do you commercialize something that can do anything when people want to buy something? And so it was for us a challenge of really turning our software into solutions that were very clear to say, hey, we're marketing this thing to address your specific problem versus, yeah, we have this cool tool that you could do anything with. And so that was a really interesting marketing and sales challenge for us.
Yeah.
Uh, and then one other that comes to mind is building trust. So obviously, everything we do is us saying we are going to help keep your data private or keep your IP confidential. And so for us, it's also been really important to have things like ISO certifications or SOC 2 certifications
Oh,
in
right,
order
yeah.
to inspire trust that people say, oh, these people know what they're doing. Yes, I'm willing to, sponsor them to go through an InfoSec process.
Yeah, interesting. So just going back to the point about the sales and marketing challenge. So how do you do that then? Because how do you make it so that it is solving a specific problem, in a specific vertical?
Yeah. So I think for some of this, it's inspired by a lot of our early users who are very creative. So we have some really good partners who are kind of physician scientists who are at the bleeding edge, who have inspired, like, oh, that's really interesting. I see what you're trying to do. We can productize that a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
And then, frankly, some of it has just been bashing your head against a wall or an experience of trial and error and having
Yeah,
conversations
yeah.
with others where you say, hey, what about this or what about that? And so some folks on our team are very creative at trying to connect the dots and saying, I'm hearing this. Let's synthesize it in this way. So, for example, in working with folks in the life sciences, uh, we would go out and we'd say, well, we can do federated learning. They say, well, I don't care about federated learning. That as a technique sounds interesting, but I don't have a federated learning business unit or something. But when we
Yeah.
say all of a sudden, hey, we can help you build a real world data hub to partner with hospitals in order to then eventually train your AI models, that actually starts to resonate with people who say, oh, I do have a gap in real world data. It would be fantastic if I could find a partner that could help me streamline the process of setting up a network and then with that network in place, having a tool that I can use in order to very quickly collaborate with the data from the sites in that network. So that kind of iterative process and getting feedback from stakeholders and then realizing like, okay, we need to sharpen this message is how it, I think, got over the hump. And so now we're now starting to see that pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just shows the importance of having that diverse skill set in the team as well, doesn't it? you know, having all those people to say, hang on a minute, we need to probably phrase this a little bit differently and have a better, you know, better angle on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having the connections across clinical experts and data science experts and data engineering experts is a really important confluence of skill sets.
Thanks for sharing that. You touched on it earlier. What comes next for Rhino? You mentioned new verticals. Anything else that's exciting that you can share with the listeners?
Yeah, so I think beyond our kind of vertical expansion, the other thing that we're really excited for now is the launch of our harmonization copilot. So I touched on this very briefly, but one of the major challenges that a lot of these collaborations run into is every hospital stores their data a little bit differently, or even the life sciences firms have slightly different needs when they might be working with a hospital. And this always adds either a ton of time or it just makes projects impossible because you have hospital data engineering teams that are just not equipped to take on a ton of new work. And so a lot of projects that should be feasible don't get done. And so we're now using a generative AI tool that actually can recommend mappings from, data model A to data model B with a human in the loop so that everything is, validated by a real clinical data expert. And then we automate the writing of the ETL. So this really just streamlines the process, provides a ton of leverage to those data engineers. And our hope is that this then streamlines the data collaborations overall because it makes some projects possible that weren't possible, or it just cuts the timeline down significantly because you don't have to wait for the data engineering capacity to come available.
Yeah, got it. So what's the timeline on that then? Is it in the thing now?
Yeah, so that's we've just deployed it to production, and we have a couple of early users, which is really exciting to see. This something that our engineering team has been working on for months. So it's great to see early traction, and we're hoping to continue to expand this further.
Yeah, fantastic. And just lastly, Chris, I mean, you touched on new verticals before, and I was kind of thinking that we have an audience that listens to this show that are in the climate space as well, and I was thinking that perhaps that is an avenue for you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mentioned the thesis that I have is really anywhere where data are too sensitive to share. And I can imagine a lot of applications in the climate space where folks may really benefit from some centralized reporting or the ability to train models on decentralized data of like, what are your emissions or what are you doing in order to generate those emissions, where you wouldn't necessarily want to share that. And that's where our platform can come in really, really handy, where you can do those federated analytics without ever needing to share your data, and you can keep everything private and confidential of who is the source of what, but still then be able to get the aggregate system level view, which I think would be a really cool application.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'd be really interesting to learn more about what's going to come up in the next 12 months, and have a second episode of this. But for now, Chris, that's all we've got time for. So thanks so much for joining us. It's been really interesting. Guys, this is Chris Laws from Rhino Health. Thanks again.
Thanks, Lee.